Another really important topic when it comes to decimals, even if you have a calculator really handy, is rounding. And then in a related topic is estimating answers. And with rounding, sometimes, a lot of times actually, people just aren't that interested in the details of the exact answer all the way out to many decimal places. So it's very common actually for people to just be asked to round off to the nearest tenth or the nearest hundredth or even the nearest whole number. That's really pretty common, especially in this age of calculators where everybody has a calculator. We just don't want every single last little digit in the answer. It's not important. So rounding is really an important skill to develop, and estimating can be helpful because people do make mistakes when they enter things into a calculator. You're trying to do it fast and so forth. And so being able to look at the answer and just think, well, just estimating in my head, is that a plausible answer? Does that make sense at all? That's really helpful too, again, if you're using calculators quite extensively as we are in this class. Rounding. Suppose you have this number and you're being asked to round it to the nearest tenth. So 5.62945. So the first step is to identify which digit represents the 10th place. And that would be the first digit just to the right of the decimal point. So your decision always with rounding is that digit, are you going to keep it the same or round up? That's your decision. It's just one of those two. Do you keep it the same or do you round it up? And the procedure that we use is we just look to the very next digit to the right. If that digit is 5 or above, then we round that 6 up to 7. And if it's below 5, that is between 0 and 4, then we keep the 6 the way it is. We leave it the way it is. We don't round up. And what's really important too is it does not matter in this problem what's happening out here. It doesn't matter at all what's going on there. So you can just forget everything else to the right if you have a lot of decimal places. So in this case, we would round it off to be 5.6. And the reason why is because that 2 is not big enough, right? It's not 5 or above to make us want to round that 6 up to the next number 7. So the answer here would be 5.6. Let's try another one. All right, so here we're going to round this number to the nearest hundredth place. So it's a little bit different problem, perhaps a little more complicated. That's still that cold hanging out there. So again, what's the first step? You're being asked to round to the nearest hundredth. You need to know where that is exactly in this number. So it's right here. So in this case, we're going to look to the very next number to help us make that decision. Is that 9 going to stay the way it is, or is it going to get rounded up? So in this case, the next number is 5. This 0 actually is not really important in this rounding off process here. But the next number to the right then is 5, and that is big enough. So that's suggesting that we need to round up. So that means that 9 goes to a 10, but it wouldn't be 0.4 and then like a 10. All right. That's not the right answer. Okay. What we end up doing is that this 10 is, we're going to kind of carry that 1 over to the 4. So it goes to 16.50. All right. If we back up just a little and think about the number that we're working with, we're trying to decide 16.49. Does it round off to 16.49 or does it round up just a little bit to 16.50? In this case, it does, because when you take that 9 and round it up one more to 10, 10 carries over a little bit, so you have a final answer of 16.50, and that's rounded to the nearest hundredth. So let's apply some. So your calculator, you had to do a problem, maybe for MyMathLab, where you had to multiply a couple of decimals, maybe even harder decimals than this, but let's just look at this problem. And your calculator said, okay, of course, the calculator will only do what you tell it to do, but your calculator said that 13.25 times 6.9 equals, calculator came up with, answer is 8.12. And so what you would want to do would be to just think really quickly, could that possibly be a correct answer? Most of the time, you're going to put in the right numbers and in the right order, and the calculator will give you the right answer, right? But maybe you made a mistake. So here's where estimating can rounding and estimating can help out. So when I think about this problem, I think, well, like 13.25, if I just round that off to a whole number, 13, all right, because that 0.2 is not big enough to make me round up to 14. And 6.9, if I round that off to a whole number, that would be 6.9 rounds up to 7. We'll just call it 7. 13.7, is that at all something that's going to be close to 8? No. It's going to be way bigger than 8. And in fact, you could calculate that out and figure out that that's it's not even going to come anywhere near 8. Nowhere close. So a quick estimation like that suggests that you better go back to your calculator and calculate that decimal problem again, because what you came up with, this 8.12, is definitely incorrect. So that's how rounding and estimating can really help you when you're working with your calculator.